People who don't want to tax the 1% but are not in the 1%, why? Most people don't realize that the 1% is taxed very little on unearned income. Even Jeff Bezos earns less than $100,000 a year. So a majority of his income is taxed at a lower rate because it's unearned. Reddit. If you believe X, please explain why. Everyone on Reddit that doesn't believe X, let me answer this one. Edit typo. The only really conceivable way to tax wealth is to force stock liquidations, which I don't like for moral and pragmatic reasons. Elon Musk isn't sitting on a pile of billions of dollars like a dragon would. If you guys want an actual answer instead of people circle jerking, then sort by controversial. Lol. BC, we might be in the 1% someday, so we wouldn't want to hurt our future selves. John Steinbeck once said that socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Edit quotation marks. Because tax rate doesn't matter until tax loopholes are closed. Anyone talking about tax hikes on the 1% is just looking for class warfare points and is fully aware these people dodge majority of taxes. When someone wants to actually use our vast spying technology to financially audit the 1%, you found your winner. The federal government collects trillions, and spends the bulk of it on nonsense, or, even worse, on predator drones, missiles and domestic surveillance. They neither need, nor deserve, more money. They could tax at 99% and none of that money would go towards helping people. Because every tax hike ever levied starts out for the 1%. But the 1% find loopholes in the tax code, and that tax on the 1% eventually falls to the middle class. The first income tax was only on the top 0.1% of people, and it was only like 0.5%. Now look where we are. Not to mention all the other lovely taxes our government has foisted upon us. Distrust. Every single time they say they are taxing the rich more, the rest of us get shit on. So every time I hear them talking about only raising taxes in the rich, I get ready for the next way we are getting screwed. Because I don't believe that complex problems have simple solutions, and I think that politicians just use the 1% as a scapegoat to distract from the fact that they are horribly incompetent at their job. I think the government needs to stop reckless spending before asking for more money. Stop sending so much overseas. Stop being the world's police. High taxes for rich means they will move away. I believe they should be taxed in the highest bracket only and not more. 1. Suppose someone earns $100 million a year. You tax 30% of that and you get $30 million. You raise it to 50% and he moves to a different state, country, and you get 0. 2. Many of them are wealth creators. They just don't pay their own taxes but also employ other people. If a small company with 100 people moves away to a different state, not all 100 people would be able to move. So you basically have 50 unemployed people. Tax heavens exist for a reason. I'm wealthy but not rich, not in the 1%, but feel like I'd be the next target after they piss away any gains from the 1%. The problem is I actually pay taxes and have a high salary, getting started as a doctor, don't own a business to funnel funds through, hire expensive CPAs, I just use TurboTax. I don't mind paying high taxes, but it's hard to ignore paying $75,100K in taxes on $350K. My student loans are off the charts too. Second mortgage, I can't deduct anything and never get any stimulus. I don't trust the government with even more money. They have already shown to be incompetent with the money they have. I don't think most people are against taxing the 1%, we're against milking them because of their success. The simple reason is what's theirs isn't mine. Edited typo. I just don't think it's fair. I get pissed off because I lose more than 50% of the money I earned, and I am consistent with that opinion for rich people and poor people. We should focus on making sure our current taxes are spent well, and don't just go back to corporations and banks in the form of bailouts, or to corrupt politicians' pockets. In the case of the USA, it should also be a priority that the money doesn't just go to feed the war machine, or shady organizations like the Pentagon. Once that's done, the next priority should be to make sure everyone is taxed what they currently should be taxed, and stop allowing companies based on the Cayman Islands or other fiscal paradise to operate in countries unfairly, avoiding most taxes. After that's done, then raising taxes may be considered. I live in a socialist country. Not in the 1%, and not desiring to be, but it's always better to earn more than to earn less. And socialism helps people climb the ladder. If not for socialism, once you turn homeless, you'd be a homeless beggar for the rest of your life, because nobody will hire someone who has no access to shower until the first payday. I do want to tax them. Just like everybody else. Why should they be exempt? Everyone needs to pay their taxes. I just like to piss off college kids who call themselves socialists. The top 1% of earners already pay 38.5% of all income taxes. They pay more than the bottom 90% combined. I'd say they already pay the fair share, whatever that means. Because they've been deluded into thinking that one day they'll be the 1%. They think if they work hard enough they can be as rich as the top 1%, but the only way the 1% can even exist is through wealth gap inequality. People have to be at the bottom for someone to be at the very top. Firstly, your question assumes the 1% don't pay any taxes. This is false. They pay the vast majority of taxes in the US. Secondly, I strongly suggest you read up on the history of the AMT, Alternative Minimum Tax, in the US. It was instituted in 1969 as a tax limited to millionaires and billionaires. However, over time it became a tax on middle to upper middle class people. It didn't take much income to be snared with the AMT, and you certainly didn't need to be a millionaire and billionaire to be paying the millionaire and billionaire tax. Finally, the more government collects in taxes, the more it spends. It never stops. I have no claim, moral or material, over anyone else's property. Edit. I'm interested in the wording of your question. Are there people who say that the top 1% of earners should not be taxed at all? I believe they should be taxed the same way every citizen is taxed, so IDK if that counts. Basically, I think it's just treating everyone equally. If I had earned the money I want to spend it however I want, that's why. Because the US spends absolutely asinine amounts of money on the military-industrial complex, foreign aid, and other military bullshit that could easily be reallocated to pay for domestic programs and other necessary expenditures. Not to mention raising taxes on the rich often means lots of extra stuff that never gets publicity will be tacked onto the bill to get congressmen to actually vote for it. I believe that we should all be taxed an equal, low percentage, and that government should only operate in the most minimal amount necessary. I believe that people have a right to their own property, and that I do not have a right to others' property, especially by government proxy. Income tax is government-enforced inequality. Because Bill Gates being rich isn't taking anything away from me. I'm from Germany where rich people pay more taxes than in America I think, but I wouldn't want them to be taxed even more. The reason for this is that many people want to be rich, and oftentimes a good way of becoming rich is creating something that holds value to others. Be it entertainment, necessities or other goods, services that are useful to other people. So if you take away the incentive of becoming rich by taxing the rich too much, for many people you also take away the reason to create such useful things. So by giving people the incentive of becoming rich we ultimately speed up innovation and progression of humanity, which I believe to be beneficial to all of us. Because it is my dream to win the lottery, which would place me in the top 1%. Because I know people in the 1%, and if they get taxed like some folks in the US want to tax them, they'll just get up and leave the US altogether, since they have the financial wherewithal to do so. And then we'll be taxing the middle class, since they'll be the new 1%, and we'll be collecting a fraction of the taxes. I think people who aspire to be in the 1% don't want their dream position sullied. This is not particularly logical, but it is similar to not wanting hypothetical Powerball lottery ticket winnings taxed despite the negligible chance of it actually impacting you. I would much rather tax everyone less, and shrink the size and role of government. Beyond that, the tax structure of the US already is extremely progressive, with the bottom 50% of earners paying nothing or close to, and the top earners pay over half. Because excessive taxation is immoral. What right do other people have to claim anyone else's earnings? Paying taxes for services everyone uses makes sense. Roads, national defense. But wealthy people don't use the social services that they pay exorbitant amounts of money to support anyway. The top 1% already pay 40% of all income tax. How is that moral? And no, you can't simply say exploiting the workers to make their wealth. Paying wages is not exploitation, stop it. You don't have to be the ones impacted by an injustice to think it's wrong. Excessive taxation is wrong. I think the tax rate on everyone should be a lot lower. There is no reason why the government should be taking home more than 20% of money you earned. In the Netherlands the top rate, after 60 KIIRC, is 50%. That's just criminally high. I or others will not see any of that money ever in our lives until we get Social Security, and that still is a very small amount of money. I should be allowed to opt out of useless tax spending such as foreign aid since it all goes into the hands of corrupt government officials anyway. Because the greediest part of our society are politicians, not billionaires. They spend $1.9 trillion of our money and want more. Nothing ever satisfies our ruling class. I don't know much about economics, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what I am talking about, but I feel like for some reason a lot of people seem to think that taxing them is somehow going to solve all your problems, and that just doesn't make sense to me. The US spent $732 billion on their military in 2019. That's more than double of second place. So much of that money could have gone into education and healthcare, but they chose to spend it on the military. Fix your government's objectives first. Source. Edit. Wanted to add that I would much rather have people like Elon and Bill do what they do instead of the government taxing them. Because the wealth of the 1% isn't in bags under their beds. Among other things, it supports the banks that we borrow from to run our lives. When you buy a house, someone has to put up the cash for you. Same with credit cards, car loans, etc. If the 1% runs out of liquid assets, we'll all be paying unimaginable interest rates for the things we take for granted. Because I understand that Jeff Bezos doesn't have billions in banknotes or bullion hiding in 17 warehouses somewhere. He has it invested in companies that employ people. If we took this from Jeff and gave it to the government, we'd have fewer jobs and more wasted dollars. Jeff, Elon, Bill, the billionaires are using their dollars to make more dollars and jobs and engage in general value creation. Taking these dollars from them and giving it to governments to spend poorly will result in less value creation, and consequently fewer jobs and actually less tax. These dollars are currently in smarter hands than they would be in with a government. There is a genuine idea that people shouldn't be punished just for doing well. If you make $1 million a year, why should you pay 50% in tax when your neighbor who makes merely $100,000 only pays 30%? In a way, I agree with this basic principle, though I also agree that a progressive tax system is far better than any flat tax. Problem with this idea is that it presumes the millionaires and billionaires actually pay their fair share. As someone else pointed out, Bezos' annual income is less than $100,000. This is taxed accordingly, but all his other income is barely taxed at all. Through lobbying and sometimes outright corruption, the ultra-wealthy have been able to install so many loopholes and tricks that they never pay their fair share, be it 30% or 50% or whatever. Because while I am not in the top 1%, I am in the top 5–10% that gets hit the hardest. I do not own my own business, so I have to pay more than a third of my income to the IRS. The top 1% will continue to find ways to avoid taxes, so the burden will fall on people like me who spent the money and years to get educated. I worked my way up in my career path to pay off debt and finally reach the middle class, and because loopholes are not available to the middle class, we get hit the most. If we could tax the 1% without taxing me additionally, I'd be all for it. But since that won't happen, I'd rather have taxes reduced across the board, even if it also benefits the 1%. Edit. Top 10% is like 120–150K, which is not upper class by any means. It's barely middle class in any decent-sized city. I don't necessarily care about ultra-rich people getting taxed more, but it's not a solution because the government is so inefficient and dumb that the extra money will not be used to better society. People are very naive to think that this money will drastically improve healthcare, education, infrastructure, etc. In reality, the money will go straight to the military, get sent to foreign countries, or be used in a dumb way that benefits no one. The propped-up corpses in government don't give a single fuck about education, healthcare, or the next generation. Because the government, no matter who is in charge, always screws it up and taxes the middle class instead. I am a 1% that isn't able to take advantage of capital gains taxes and other situations that Jeff Bezos and others are able to. We get taken to the cleaners during tax season, and it hurts to hear people complain about the 1% ripping off the system. We pay in a lot to the government and have never gotten a tax return. Most of the time we pay in every year, and it's more than most people's yearly salary. I wish we weren't lumped into the same stereotype. If you're poor, you pay very little tax. If you're rich, you have enough money to start a company in some tax heaven, charge some license fees, contracts, and avoid taxes. I'm the middle class. I earn enough to get fucked by high taxes, but not enough to be able to avoid them. That's why I'm against any more taxes. Any change, law here, to tax the rich hits me directly. Me, and other people who earn 2x, 3x. The average pay. People who earn 100x average pay. Just avoid it. Because the 1% already pays more tax in a month than most people will likely pay in their entire life, so why would ask them to pay an ever higher percentage than everybody else just because they earn more? Where is the fairness in that? You probably make a lot more than a lot of people in your country. Would it be fair if every time you went to Starbucks you had to pay double just because you make more than other people? I don't think you can really tax the rich. The price of milk will just increase to cover the new tax. I will be paying whatever tax is levied, either directly or in increased costs elsewhere. The Walmart family is not going to lose money. Because the 99% also try to avoid taxes as well. Taxes just suck no matter how much money you have. Imagine you ran the lottery, and you decide to make it fair. Instead of a multi-million-dollar payout, you decide to make all lottery players have equal outcomes. So for every dollar ticket, you collect the dollar and hand back 50 cents. Outsized payoffs are needed if you want people to take risks. Because I don't trust the government to actually use the money in an efficient manner. The 1% aren't keeping their wealth in a giant vault. It's invested, it's loaned out, it's used to operate businesses that produce enormous amounts of value. If the 1% waste their wealth on shit ideas, implementation that don't produce value, they will lose that wealth. If the government does it, we get taxed more and the thing in question wasting money may not even go away.